Hi, and welcome to the third episode of the Dying Ways podcast with Dale Heim. I'm your host, Charles Featherston, and today I'll be talking to Dale about how dying has changed in the last half century. So, Dale, I guess the biggest thing is, has the length of the active dying phase changed over your career?
Good afternoon, listeners. Yes, definitely. The length has changed because we have become more proficient with medicine and we keep patients alive for longer. So the answer is yes.
So, in keeping them alive for longer, do you find the nature of care in palliative or terminal stages has changed?
Yes, the answer to that again is yes. It has definitely changed because medicine has advanced to the degree now where cancer used to be a death sentence, for example, cancer. And now today we can keep people alive for a lot longer and they have got better quality of life.
Okay, and so do you find that that better quality of life is persistent, or that there's also an increased phase of serious morbidity and frail care?
There is a serious increase in morbidity and frail care because, as I've said many, many times on these podcasts, the Hippocratic Oath means we keep people alive. So we do everything in our power to keep somebody alive. And it is the natural way for a patient to, I want to live. I don't want to die. That is natural. It's not unnatural to want to live. And the reason being is we don't know how to die. We only know how to live. We were born to die, but we only know how to live. We do not know how to die.
Have people changed in their acceptance and ability to talk about it as a result of either changes in spirituality or just social changes in the last 50 years?
That is, I can answer that. Yes, definitely. People have changed and people are talking more and more about dying, but it is not necessarily because they are now religious. I don't think the religious comes into this. I think that people are opening up and accepting that we must talk about dying because it makes it so much easier for the person who is dying.
Okay. So it's not that people themselves are necessarily more comfortable with it, it's that the people around them are more comfortable.
I'm going to use an example for you. Have you ever wondered why people say, they always ask, what was the cause of death? How did she die? What happened? They want to know what happened. Why the inquisitiveness? Because we do not know how to die. And they're looking at, okay, she did it like this. It's like somebody performing in front of an audience and you watch what they do because you want to copy what they do because they got it right. Do we get it right sometimes when we are about to die? Yes, we do. If you plan your death, you definitely get it right. But there's so much inquisitiveness around death because we actually don't know what it is that we're going to go through. The biggest fear I have said about dying is pain. So they will say, did she die of cancer? Where did she die? What were her last days like before she took her last breath? It is curiosity because I know I've got to go through it myself. All about it is curiosity because we don't actually know.
Okay, so was it easier or harder back when death was more present in people's lives? Because for us, most people these days, death is quite distant in their general life and their lived reality.
I think in the good old days of when I was doing my training, when you got really ill, they didn't keep you in hospital and block a bed with your body. They would send you home to die with your family, and that was the norm. Especially a farmer way out in the sticks where somebody in his family is dying. They take it upon themselves to look after their own. Medicine has changed this for us. Medicine has said now, I'll make it easier for you. Your mother is 86 years old. She's had a fall. Let her go to hospital. She dies in hospital. There's no complications for the family to worry about. They see to the mortuary. They see to whatever it is that the undertakers must do. And it takes the onus off the family. But is this what we want? I am an old person. Do I want my children to put me into a hospital? Do I want to be just left in hospital until I die and the mortuary comes to collect me? No. And there again, I get back to, is your suitcase packed? Have you told your family what it is that you want them to do in the case of you dying? That is why I keep going back to, is your suitcase packed? Are you ready to die? Do you know what you want? Have you told your family?
So that takes me on to something else I wanted to ask you about. So you say that now it's much more common that people go into the hospital and stay there. How has the family presence changed during death? Did you used to have, even when someone was in the hospital, a lot more family members present? And even when they're sent home, do people end up with less family support than they used to?
The family support in a hospital was the same when I was in the 1970s as it is today, simply because people, if you're in hospital, suddenly they've got to come and see you. If you say, oh, my mother's in hospital, oh, I've got to go and visit her. I didn't go and visit her and have a cup of tea with her at home. I'll go into the hospital. What is the curiosity of a hospital? And when she's in hospital, they feel they are safe because they are not taking any responsibility. So they will pay their respects. They will go and see that person. But let that person go home and see very quickly who is there to support that person. I think in the good old days, it was an accepted fact that you didn't block a bed in a hospital. You took your loved one home and you nurtured them at home until they died, looked after them at home until they died. I think that has changed.
And so do you think that makes it easier for the family?
It makes it easier for a family, but it makes it very difficult for someone. I'm preparing and I'm saying to you, you have to die. You are, well, the doctor gives the green light and says you don't have much longer to live. You are about to die. It makes it very difficult for that patient, very difficult. But unless the family have got the finances to have a nursing sister, a carer, somebody on the scene where the patient is at home, makes it terribly difficult for the family. And there again is my suitcase packed. What do I want when I die? I want to die at home. I want to move my bed into the sunroom. I want to have a nursing sister there. Provide for that if you can. If you can.
So do you think that finances have become a bigger part of death and the dying transition for the family? Or has that always been the same?
Unfortunately, I think that is correct, because today, if you want to do home caring and you don't have a medical aid that particularly covers that particular genre that you are looking at, that particular modality rather, you wanting a qualified nursing sister to be there 6 hours per day, who's going to pay for that? Is your medical aid going to pay for that? What we have found with the medical aids nowadays is they are trying desperately to, I use the word, kick patients out of the hospital because they need the beds. So they are providing more and more and more for home care. More and more the medical aids are providing for home care.
Okay. Has there been a change in whether people choose to die at home or not?
Yes, definitely. People choose to die at home. They definitely choose to die at home. Unless they are surrounded by a family who haven't cared in the past, really don't give a hoot where their mother or father dies, then it's different. Then the mother and father don't go to the length of packing my suitcase and being ready for death. They just take what's coming. And that is not a very close-knit family. May I give myself as an example?
Sure.
My example of dying, because I'm not young anymore, my children know exactly what they're inheriting. They know exactly what it is that I want when I die. I'm not going to be attached to any machines and ventilators. So I have spoken to my family at length and told them of my wishes. They know verbatim. Don't go on about that again. But I know that they will carry out my wishes. I won't die in a hospital. I'll die at home in my own bed. And that is what I have asked them to look at when the time comes.
To return to frail care a little, what's the biggest difference in how the last year of life unfolds when you have been given the green light and are just waiting it out now compared to back in the 70s?
The green light and frail care don't really go together, because you can be given the green light and you're 23 years old. Green light to me, when I keep talking about it like your suitcase packed, I've got a lot of sayings, haven't I? So the green light means you've gone to the doctor, 20 years old, 90 years old, and he has said, I cannot do anything more for you. You are terminal and you are going to die. So go home, get your finances in a row, go and talk to your family and prepare to die. So that is the green light. But as far as frail care is concerned, this is something completely different. And frail care is somewhere where we put a patient, a mother, a father, anybody, a young person can even go into frail care, where they can no longer help themselves. They have to have full-time care, and we not everybody can afford a full-time nursing sister at home. So you go into a frail care center. And the frail care center is, you've got nursing sisters around you 24/7. You've got access to a doctor 24/7. And frail care is, they're keeping you comfortable. They're keeping you alive. It doesn't mean that you're terminal. It could mean you're in frail care because you are old, you've got an injury, you can't walk anymore, and you need 24/7 care.
Okay, so do you find that there's a lot more people in that situation of needing 24/7 care in their last few years these days?
Very much so, because we keep patients alive again. In the frail care, you're going to find that we've increased their nutrition. If the poor old soul is not eating anymore, we medical staff will put a nasogastric tube in and we'll feed them through this tube. But we will keep them alive, because that is the oath we take. So frail care patients are kept comfortable. We have to feed them. It is against the Hippocratic oath to let somebody starve. There's an old saying, if you want to die, stop your medication. Don't stop eating and drinking. I'm not putting you into prison, but if you stop your medication, you are going to slowly die. But not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody is pulling let's use the terminology, they're not pulling the plug on themselves. They're quite happy, and the family are quite happy to have mum or dad in the frail care where they are comfortable, and they are waiting for the time where they take their last breath.
So you don't find that a lot of people make a conscious choice in terms of stopping their medication or eating? People do mostly just wait it out.
Do. Yes,
Oh,
they do.
okay.
They do.
Yeah.
If you get somebody who has not got dementia, they have got incredible pain, and they know that they are going to their time on this earth plane is limited, and all they can see in front of them is darkness. They cannot see any light. I know of people who have had bypasses, and when they find that they are showing symptoms again of their heart is not doing so well, they have to go in for perhaps a further surgery. They stop their medication. They say, no, time out now. I've reached the age of 80. I don't want to be around anymore. Stop my medication, and I'm just going to live in the moment. Yes, people do stop their medication. I do not approve of people stopping eating and drinking. I can't do that to somebody, because it takes me back to what somebody would do in prison. It's not in my makeup to say to somebody, stop eating and stop drinking. No, that doesn't come into the medical side of my brain. But yes, if you stop your medication, by all means. I sometimes the medication that you take affects has got different effects on the body. And I will take my sister, for example, and she said, I can't take this one anymore because it makes me nauseous. And I say, but stop the medication. Yes, but it's helping me to do this, this, and this. So how do you get past that with a layman? They're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. Integrative medicine, where we
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about integrated medicine and start with telling us how you got into it over the last decade or so?
Okay, integrative medicine is complementary medicine. And where we have mainstream medicine, for example, chemotherapy, radiation, many, many, many times the oncologist will work with an integrative doctor who is doing modalities, for example, intravenous ozone, intravenous medication for vitamin C, and so forth. And the two can work very closely together because integrative medicine, when we talk about holistic doctors, they concentrate on the immune system. They concentrate on the healing center of the body. So oncologists have now come out of the woodwork, many, many, many oncologists, and realized that, okay, what was the first thing we used to do with a patient who has diagnosed with cancer? We remove the cancer. So if the cancer is in the breast or in the colon, we remove it. Then the patient has got the choice. So surgery is always important, always. But then the patient has the opportunity or she can decide, am I going to go ahead with chemotherapy? Am I going to go ahead with radiation? And that doctor will work with an integrative doctor who does the holistic side. And they will combine the two together. And that is what we do nowadays.
Okay, so how did you discover integrated medicine?
I discovered integrative medicine because of one of my patients who was diagnosed with, he was terminal and he was stage 5 liver cancer. So he'd been to every doctor in Cape Town, Johannesburg, you name it, including Switzerland where he lived. And his final straw was going to Cancun. Now, Cancun is known for integrative medicine. They're known for alternative healing. They do the intravenous ozone. They do the Rife machine. They do absolutely everything when it comes to integrative. So this particular patient went there and they said to him, we can't do anything for you. You really don't have a snowball's hope in hell. He had a lot of radiation scarring in his abdomen, and this is what made it so difficult for us to get his immune system going. However, between a doctor and myself, we decided that we were going to do a experimental thing. It in those days was called GC math, and we were going to work with the mitochondria of the actual disease. And with the doctors in Germany, because I speak German, with the doctors in Germany, they told us what to do here in South Africa with regards to using the Rerum and the Bravo to stabilize this particular patient. Also, we improved his immune system. He had every integrative modality that we could possibly give him. And very, very, very pleased to say that he lasted another 5 years. He was the patient that came with me to the World International Congress for Integrative Medicine in Germany. And that was just before the year of COVID. He went with me. So we have seen that these types of medicines that we do, these modalities that we do work. But I want to get back to one thing, and because of this podcast, when you have got something that is diseased, for example, you have got a growth in your breast, you've got a growth in the colon, it must be removed. You must be operated on it, it must be removed. You remove the problem, and then you start with building the patient's body up again and getting them back on their feet again.
Okay, so you've mentioned, so there's ozone therapies and vitamin C therapies. What other modalities of care have turned up in the last decade or two that just weren't present in your early career?
There's a lovely saying that every single solitary doctor that goes through the university should be taught about the immune system. They should be taught about gut health. But when we are doing medicine, we're training to be nursing sisters or doctors, all we think about is pharmaceutical medicine. That's all we think about. When it comes to alternative medicine and the immune system, we talk about the gut being brain number one, not brain number two, brain number one, because whatever is going on in your gut is going on in your head. So if you think that your gut is healthy, and you've got these continual, something is not so clear in the head, go and have a look at what is happening with the gut. The gut is the most important thermometer for the system. This is where all the healing takes place, is from the gut. And what do we put into our gut on a daily basis other than big pharmaceutical? We put poisons into our gut because we spray everything that we eat. So the gut is where we clear the immune system. And when we've got the immune system going, the body starts to heal. That is the most important integrative modality that has arisen over the years. But it's not very easy to convince doctors of that. Not very easy. But there are doctors out here that are integrative.
And do you find that it has a bigger effect on the patient's pain or on their state of mind?
Their state of mind. Definitely, when a patient sees that they've got energy and they can see that they are getting healthier, the state of mind is unbelievably improved. So with that, they become more free about what is happening and they're not so closed. They can see they're healing. So you've got somebody that you are working with. You need to have positivity when you're working with anybody. You cannot have negativity. So the moment they see something positive, it multiplies. And this is where the healing comes from. I'm not saying this is psychological. I'm saying that somebody who can see that their body is healing, they have a different take on what is happening. I'm sure you will agree.
Yeah. So do you find that people take more direct agency over their own illnesses these days? Because I know that back in the day, it was much more common for doctors to be like gods on high telling you what to do. But do you find that these days it's more of a negotiation between the care staff and the patient?
No, doctors are still God. No. Patients will, if I will say something to a patient and the doctor, no, sister, the doctor said that, I do what the doctor says. No, doctors are God. Doctors to a patient are God. Oh, the doctor, I'm seeing the doctor today. It's like a huge, big excursion in your life because you're going to see the doctor. No, doctors are God. It hasn't changed. I don't even know if it will ever change.
Is that true across generations? So even young people still have that attitude?
I don't know about young people, but I do know I have a grandson of 8. He's got a sprained wrist. And I said to him, Wolfie, we can do X, Y. No, Granny, the doctor says I've got to do this. So Granny's overruled completely. Granny doesn't know anything. Even if she is a nursing sister, she knows nothing because the doctor said this. No, doctors they come in first and foremost.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I would have thought that as things have evolved, that people would make more of their own decisions or question what the doctors are telling them more.
I think there is a big fear. Can you imagine getting on the wrong side of your doctor or your lawyer? You don't get what you want at the end. So, yes, people do make their own decisions. And yes, they do say, I'm going to opt out of all this treatment and I'm going to go home and I'm going to wait for my time to come. Yes, there are people like that, but they know more about medicine than the average person on the street. Do you think the average person on the street is now just going to say, I opt to go home and wait for my time to come? I'm not going to go and see a doctor. They don't, because they believe that doctors can heal them. They believe that doctors can save them.
So, on that note, I want to talk a bit about iatrogenic error. So, for those that don't know, iatrogenic error is issues caused by a medical practitioner. The classic example is people having stuff left in them after surgery, for example. Do you find that iatrogenic error is a big part of terminal illness?
This kind of error, that word, this kind of error has been in situ for as long as I have been a nursing sister. We as nursing staff, we are expected to do our jobs, and we do not challenge, talk, or say, oh, the doctor did this in theatre or he did that in theatre. We always kept our mouths closed. But if you have a look at what happens in the States and how many doctors are sued for literally leaving, nothing is as serious as about leaving an instrument in a body. They will be sued because I came out of plastic surgery and my wounds went septic. And why did my wounds go septic? They will try anything to sue doctors, particularly in the States. Here in South Africa, we are always behind, but we as well, if something goes wrong in surgery, we are very, very, very quick to come up and say, this is not right. But have you ever been in a situation where you want to prove negligence with regards to a doctor? Very difficult, because everybody in the medical field have got tight lips. It does change. And I have been asked to go into a court because I was doing anesthetics and I had a baby die on my table. And I was asked to go in and give evidence as to what happened, because they were having the anesthetist up for negligence. In hindsight, it wasn't his negligence, but yes, we're very, very, very aware of patients dying where they shouldn't have died, or I think complications more in theatre. This is somewhere where definitely, it's more in the open. Doctors being sued left, right, and centre nowadays.
So, in a more general sense, do you find that there are often issues caused by doctors getting medication wrong or not reading a patient's situation correctly?
Yes, I have seen where, I wouldn't say it's more than it has been in the past. Doctors are human. And when they are very, very, very busy, I think to myself, it's the last profession in life I would want to take on, because I have to sink my heart and soul into that patient 100%, because I must know every little thing about that patient. And how long is my consultation with a general practitioner? He might see me for 15 minutes and he says, okay, and off you go. Has he actually given you everything that you needed from him? Not necessarily, but it's very difficult to not make a mistake. And doctors make lots of mistakes. And if I give you an example of a mistake, my mother-in-law, she had continual urinary tract infections. And why didn't the doctor realize that the antibiotics that they were giving her were fluoroquinolones? What happened was a complication, and it says so, if they gave her fluoroquinolones, and the side effect of fluoroquinolones is it affects the Achilles heel. And her Achilles heel, she had problems with both Achilles heel, and it affected her walking for the rest of her life. So, yeah, there are antibiotics that should not be given. But did they read the small print? Were they too busy? But more and more and more doctors are being sued nowadays, more and more. And I think they are having to be very, very, very careful with what they do.
So do you think this is something that results from doctors only having very short periods with each patient? Do you think there are ways of improving it?
Possibly, possibly. As I will say again, I'm very, very grateful I'm not a doctor, because when I ran a clinic, I always gave the onus at the end of the day to the doctor. It was wonderful. I didn't have to take that responsibility. I would say, doctor, what do you want the patient to have? And if he prescribed a particular drug that didn't agree with the patient, it had nothing to do with me. The onus wasn't on me. And life is very difficult being a doctor, very difficult being a doctor. It's very posh because I'm a doctor, everybody looks up to you. But at the end of the day, when they go to sleep, I think they have got a lot on their minds. And do you increase the time you spend with that patient? Most patients should know their own history if they're old enough. Or if it's a mother, she must know her kid's history. And if you're a mother, I think you know immediately if something hasn't agreed with your child, and you're going to take him back to the doctor. But it's very easy to fall out of favor with the doctor because he did something. Oh, he's stupid, he's this. And not necessarily his fault always. I can't malign doctors to and make it sound like they are the baddies in the outfit. They're not, because without them, we would be sunk. So doctors play an incredible part, but I wish they did not think, not everybody, but I wish there was not this connotation towards doctors that they are gods. They are not.
So just to return for a minute to how things have changed over time, do you find that the process of the family coming to terms with a death has changed since the 70s, where it was just much more common for people to die out of the blue?
They have come to terms with what is happening. And I do believe that we've progressed. Let's use the word progressed, because in the days when I was first nursing, when I first started nursing, to have a death and to actually go and talk about that death afterwards was taboo. You just lay the person out and you send them down to the mortuary, and that was your involvement with them. But I think now, with somebody who is dying at home, who is got their family surrounding them, there is far, far, far more input with that person, far more empathy. Is this because they've been going to get-togethers where they're talking about death? Or is this the doctors might have also be instrumental in saying to the family, go and talk to so-and-so and so-and-so, because they will talk you through this process of death. And we're getting back to the first question. Death is really being discussed more and more as today than we ever did.
With people discussing things more, do you find there are still communities that are very resistant to talking about it? Because I can imagine that very religious people, for example, often will not want to discuss it at all, even within the family.
Have you ever tried to have a conversation? I'm a white person, but have you ever tried to have a conversation with a black person about death? They are vehemently opposed to talking about death, because they believe in a lot more of the spirit world than we do. And if you had to talk to them, they would say, no, we don't talk about it, because then we're encouraging it. So people have got their own beliefs. Worldwide, they've got their own beliefs about death.
So do you think that's particularly something that's pronounced within the local Bantu cultures?
I do. I had an incident where I had a lady working for me, and she said to me she needed 800 Rand. And I said, for what? And she had to put up a tombstone on her husband's grave. So I said, but 800 Rand is a lot for a tombstone. She said, no, I have to do it because If I want to speak to my ancestors, I must look after the grave. And if I don't put up a tombstone and there is a truck or a car that rides over that grave, I am doomed. I am doomed for the rest of my life. So she will kill to find that 800 Rand to put up a tombstone because that is what she believes. So we all have our own beliefs about death. We all have our own beliefs about the afterlife and spirits and whatever. Everybody has their own beliefs.
That's an interesting story, I think, because it speaks to something that's definitely a very big problem here, which is the industry around death that preys on the grief of people whose family have departed recently. Is that something that's gotten bigger over your time, or is it something that was always a giant industry predating on people suffering?
I think it's always been a giant industry, and it's a very, very, very easy way to make money. If you look at those old Western movies, and you see the guy who's standing at the corner there, and all he's doing is he is producing wooden coffins because he knows this is where I'm going to make my money. You've all got to go into this coffin. Nowadays, when somebody dies, and it is somebody who believes that they have to look after the body and look after their loved one as if they were an Egyptian pharaoh. So you've got to have the best coffin. You've got to have this. It is expensive. Then you will get somebody like me who says, do I have to have a coffin to go into the incinerator? No, you've got to have a coffin. Nowadays, they make very, very, very inexpensive coffins out of, I don't know what kind of wood, but they're very inexpensive so that they put it, when you go through into the incinerator, everything goes into the incinerator. Whereas with our people, our Bantu people, they bury their dead. They do not believe in cremation at all. So there again, that takes up areas of, I don't know how much area we've got left to bury people anymore. And like the Indians, the South American Indians, our Bantu look at where their dead is buried and they regard it as a holy site. You don't go there and dance and do things on the grave. You respect that. You respect that site. So different strokes for different folks, I guess.
So have you found that that's been persistent over your whole career, or has it happened? Like, do people care less these days, or have they always cared the same amount about grave sites and where they put people?
I have to say that you cannot change most people in our country's way of thinking about a coffin and a grave, because that is their belief. But when it comes to my way of thinking, I think there is not enough. I can't attribute to the landfill here. Rather burn me and scatter my ashes. I'm not going to take up any room. Fortunately, there is a large percentage of the world that believe that this is the way to go. Do you know the other way to go with your body when you die is to give it to science?
Mm.
Because all these doctors need to practice on a cadaver. So yes, there are plenty bodies that are not claimed not claimed for years, and they do end up being used as cadavers where we cut them up and we learn how to suture or we learn the anatomy firsthand. Cadavers are very important. But here is the other thing. If we can quickly get into this. Have you ever thought about one of our Bantu people here who is prepared to give their child who has died those kidneys up for where they needed? They don't. They don't. But we have the biggest underworld here of body parts that are harvested and sold on the black market. But nobody wants to say, okay, my child has died. I can give the corneas up. I can give the kidneys up. They don't do that. That child must be buried. that child must go into a coffin because that is what their belief is.
So
Very,
has
very
organ
strange.
donation always been a difficult topic, or has it gotten easier over time?
No, it's getting more difficult. Getting more difficult because, in the good old days, we didn't even know how to do a liver transplant. I think I was involved in the first liver transplant in the 70s in Johannesburg, and then to get a liver to actually use to harvest a liver to use for this particular patient was quite something. Now it is all about where do we get these organs from? Where do we get a new heart? That patient who needs a new heart. Where do they come from? So that is the other thing. If you are in good health, if you know there is nothing wrong with you, give your organs up for harvesting so that they can be used on another healthy patient. And if you are unhealthy and you know that your organs are not going to be harvested, give your body over for science to cut it up and use it and experiment on it, learn from it.
So I guess to finish up, can you tell us so the life of a nursing sister, and particularly one specializing in trauma or palliative care, has changed a lot since you started in the 70s. What would you say to somebody that was starting on your road today?
It hasn't changed a lot. I think where the big thing where it has possibly caught up with the rules and regulations in America is in America, if you are the nursing sister who does the nasogastric tubes, then that is what you're qualified in, that is where you go. Whereas when I was doing my training, we had to be qualified in absolutely everything. So we would be taught how to do intravenous therapy and what we had to, what we were expected to do. We were often referred to as the old school nurses. We in ICU, when we were doing our ICU training, we were subjected to a lot more practical procedures than are nowadays carried out. I haven't been in ICU for a long time, so I don't really know. But the qualifications that our nursing sisters have when they walk out of their training, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal what they're expected to do. Absolutely phenomenal.
So what advice would you have for a newly qualified nursing sister to make her life and career easier?
My interest of palliative care
Yes.
or of trauma, because those,
Either.
okay. My interest in palliative care, I would honestly and truly say to somebody today that this is the incredibly rewarding modality to follow, palliative care. Very, very, very rewarding. But you have to be able to separate yourself from the patient's emotions, and you have to be on the outside as if you are the receptor for them, because they need to offload. They offload on the nursing sister all the time. You are their, what is a confidante? Can I use that word? You are the person they talk to. So you've got to be this exceptionally caring person to go into palliative care, as opposed to trauma. Trauma, why did I like trauma so much? No one talks to you. They're all ventilated. Those patients don't talk. Palliative care, you've got to be prepared to sit and listen to your patient. You are not important. It's only what your patient wants. And that it makes a good palliative care sister, as far as I'm concerned, or nurse, or doctor for that matter. It's not what you want. Palliative care means that patient is going onto their last leg of their journey. It's for you to listen to what they want on that last leg of their journey. Doctor, nurse, sister, doesn't matter. You've got to be there for them.
All right, great. Thank you. Well, I think that's enough for today. So thank you, Dale. You can find the Dying Ways book from all good bookstores. and books of practical wisdom narrated by Charles Featherston online. Join us next week for more discussions about the way death and dying have changed and Dale's experiences.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.